Live.
How's it going?
All right, so we're live. So this is our first ever podcast, me and Jared. We are shooting a video.
Long overdue.
Long overdue. It's our first one. So today is going to just be us just kicking back, shooting the shit, talking about some of the stuff we see out there in home inspections and in the field. So
Yeah, the funky business.
the funky business.
Every house has it.
Yeah. Let's talk about new home buyers. So, or actually, first, let's talk about these cool ass,
Ooh, yeah.
the new gear we got. You actually got the vintage.
I got the vintage one.
You got the vintage one. What was that for 2023?
Yeah.
This is the new brand new one. That one's the hooded. This one's the crew neck. So we'll be having the.
Yeah, we got to support our boys.
Yeah. For
killing it
Padres,
right now.
supporting Padres. So if you see this where we're out in the field, just know that we're supporting the Padres. We'll probably have these on sale in the link in the Instagram bio at some point. I don't know how much I'm going to sell them for, but these I think I'm just going to sell them super cheap. Something like, I don't know, $20 or something like that. Just to get them out there in the community so people can actually wear them to the game and shit. So,
You get rid of a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
I bought almost like 500 sweatshirts last time.
Damn.
And I only have just the gray left, just some of the grays left. Yeah, so I end up getting rid of a lot of fucking
So
sweatshirts.
other people are going to have a West Ivy closet too.
Yeah, exactly. More than just you.
I have a whole wardrobe of West Ivy.
I
here.
know. Poor Jared.
My wife's like, you got to take over the front closet now.
Sweatshirts and hats and jackets. I know.
I ain't complaining though.
I'll overdo it sometime. We'll overdo it. But we do have some new hats coming out. That's going to be dope.
I know, I like those hats.
Yeah, the new hats are gonna be dope.
Yeah.
They're gonna be like the upside down logo, so that's gonna be cool. What else we got coming out?
That is such a new thing.
Yeah.
You don't just see it every now and then. I'm starting to see it all the time. With
Everywhere.
The upside down logo and everything. It looks cool.
I think the Dodgers have an upside down LA logo.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. I think that's where I did see it.
I stole that idea from Better Buzz. I saw Better Buzz. They had it upside down. I was like, oh,
You're getting sued. No, I'm just kidding.
I know exactly. I'm gonna get a cease and desist order from. Yep. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know. We got to think of a good charity to donate this money to once we get it. I know your boys are getting back into baseball. So maybe we could do something with the baseball league. Maybe donate some money to them or something.
Just children in general.
Yeah,
They
for
always
real.
need something.
I know. I was thinking of BMX track. Maybe donating it there.
That is something that needs to get presented more to kids. I feel like
Yeah.
that style competition is. I think every kid needs to do it.
Yeah.
You know? Get a little grit in their system.
Exactly.
Because stick and ball sports, it's always been there, but like a nice competition of adrenaline rush.
Yes.
I think every kid needs to go through it.
Yeah, for sure.
Every single kid.
You can't rely on anybody. You can't blame anybody else if you lose.
Right.
Right? You lose in a BMX race or
Blame yourself.
exactly. Yeah.
It's one sport to beat yourself up at.
Like BMX, wrestling, any of those solo sports.
Yeah.
You know, I think kids learn a lot from those. They learn like the more they put in, the more they get out. You know,
Absolutely.
which I think is super important, especially for kids nowadays, you know, where everyone's getting a participation trophy.
Right.
It's good for
That drives me nuts.
right?
That drives me nuts.
It's good
I
for
never
kids.
got that.
Yeah.
It was like, well, no, you failed.
Yeah.
So you need to do it again.
Exactly.
If you want that trophy, you need to win the trophy.
Exactly. I think we were talking about that too earlier. That I think you were telling your kids along the lines at baseball when you coach that you got to actually kind of do more. You got to try harder, right?
Yeah, because practice doesn't mean it's going to make perfection. You should always look at it as you're going to progress. You know, look at it as the more work you put in, the better you get.
Yeah.
You know, it's just it's a life lesson.
Yeah.
Can't get comfortable.
Can't get comfortable. Yeah. We were talking about that
You gotta
too.
be uncomfortable to succeed.
Yeah. I was telling my boys too is everyone goes to practice at the same time. So if this kid was naturally better than you guys are all progressing at the same time. So guess what? He's going to stay better than you. You have to do something outside of the normal
Right.
to actually catch up to where he's at, you know? So kind of going above and beyond
Yeah.
your normal practice.
That
So
is very true.
that's kind of true in everything, even
Yeah.
home inspections, right? Like
It really is.
just just taking the regular InterNACHI classes or those classes are good, but we actually got to do more. And I think that's good where you come in too, is because you have that experience in construction and you've actually seen a lot of that stuff. So you have experience that's above and beyond your normal.
Yeah. It is kind of nice to have that knowledge for sure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the common stuff that we usually run into in a home inspection, I was seeing when I was a teenager, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I was doing the whole courses to be certified, I'm like, I already know all this.
Right.
Cool, I'm just gonna take the test, and then sure as shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Turned a 6-month program into 30 days. I was like, yeah, I'm out of here.
You're like, all right, that was easy.
Yeah. But it is nice to have knowledge of at least even the littlest aspects of a home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Coming into it blind's overwhelming.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, because there's a lot of things to learn in a home. A lot of moving parts.
Yes.
And a lot of things that can go wrong. Sometimes it's just the smallest things that you see that may be indicative of a bigger problem. But if you're kind of seasoned in the home inspection game, you've been doing it for a while, or you've been building homes, you could see like a small defect and say, oh man, this is indicative of a larger problem. You actually have a water heater problem, even though it looks like a little spot here.
Yeah.
You really have a roof problem,
Right.
So I think that's where kind of being seasoned in the game and then also having that experience helps out a lot.
Yeah. No, and really it doesn't, I don't think anybody realizes how much actually goes into a home or even a condo. Yeah. Like what we were just talking about before we finished our new system, when we finish our report, it shows you how much you just input before you have to sink into the report.
Oh, okay.
There's like 720 things, and I only did a 1,000 square foot condo.
Wow.
And that's just a condo,
right?
And now imagine like an 1,800 square foot home.
Right.
Like,
that's true.
Now we got exterior, we got roof, we got structure, and 700 for just a condo. We're looking at thousands of things with a full home.
That's true.
Thousands.
Is true. That is true. Yeah, when you're looking at the roof, like there was one house that I did, and it looked like a nice house. You could tell someone lived in there. They've taken really good care of the house, but it was older. And then I think I ended up finding like a gas leak. The roof was in really bad condition, and then a couple other things. But when we put things in the report, we kind of also want to like let people know the severity of it, right? So in short, the roof could be fucked up, but you really need to let the client know how bad the roof is, right? Like, hey, there's actually 30 things going on with this roof. I can tell you need a new roof, but let me show you exactly what's wrong with this roof. Your flashing is messed up. Not only at the wall flashing, but the penetrations are all messed up. Not only is your shingles old and the granules coming off, they're dry and they're flaking off,
Right.
So once you start putting all those things in there, you could have easily just said, yeah, your roof is bad, but it's good for us to actually show in detail how bad the roof is.
Right. And roofs can be tricky too. I mean, you can come into just by looking at it from the street, you can see the shingles are just shot.
Yeah.
They're gone to shit.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean the roof's leaking, because there's underlayment.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, it could look like it's the ugliest roof in California.
Right.
But once you get in the attic, there's not even a stain.
I've seen that so many times too.
There's things that it may look scary, but it doesn't have to be scary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just at the end of its life. Obviously, the underlayment's doing its job, which is huge. Mm-hmm. Now, if you come in and you got shingles missing and, there's debris all over the place, you're probably looking at some problems.
Right,
but just because of the looks, you really got to pay attention to what you're looking at. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's really true.
Shit.
Yeah, you talk to the tenants, they're like, no, we haven't had any roof leaks. And you're like, yeah, right, you've had some roof leaks. You start looking around, you're like, damn, I don't think they've had any roof leaks.
I think they're telling the truth.
I think they're telling the truth. Yeah, that's the truth. That happens a lot more than you would.
Does.
Yeah, a lot more than people would think.
I run into a lot of nasty looking roofs, but it's holding up just fine.
Yeah, sometimes they just need a roof tune up, right? When they come through, maybe change out a couple squares or fix some of the penetrations or some flashing and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
then they're, you know, get a couple more years out of it.
Right. You know, and it also depends on who did the roof too. I mean, that's always
that's
a factor.
That's true.
Cousins aren't always roofers, so
No, uncles either.
yeah. I mean, you've seen some shady roofs. you
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
But that's one aspect of your home that you don't want to ignore and do half-ass. You know.
Yep, for
You
sure.
need a solid roofer for that.
Yeah, yeah. Anything water related, right, is always top of our list because
Yes.
it's gonna
Yes.
potentially cause mold and cause structural damage or
Yeah.
interior damage and all that stuff.
Yeah, the hidden mold.
The hidden mold, yeah.
I've been finding that a lot lately.
Yeah. What about that one that we did the other day where I came and I did the mold and then we looked under the house? No, I forget. I came and did the pool.
Oh, that was
You
tax people. So that was where was it? That was in like the Spring Valley area, wasn't
I
it?
think so.
Yeah,
so.
that whole. Did you see that mold report?
I did. It was all red.
It was all red. That was the
was-
first time I've ever had all red.
Yeah.
And it was coming from underneath.
Underneath.
Because there was that lake underneath.
It was a lake, yeah. So Jared had an inspection, and it was a really small house, but the lady was really cautious. She wanted to make sure everything got inspected. So from the outside, just looking at it, it looks like a really nice house. But once we start pulling the layers back of the onion, right, it's like the roof was in really bad shape. They had a pool. The pool needed some work. And then she wanted a mold test. Good thing she did. So she got a mold test. But when it came time to crawl underneath the foundation, crawl underneath the house to look at the foundation, Jared found a lake. It was a lake. It was literally like that much standing water.
Yeah, you couldn't even. You'd be swimming.
It looked like a
diving suit.
like a spring too. It was like clear water, right? Like the water was all clear. It wasn't all murky. It was like that water had been there for a minute, right?
Yep.
And so what happened? Well, what we think happened is like all of that moisture sitting underneath the house just eventually molded out the floor.
Yeah.
And now there's just mold in all of the rooms.
Yeah, because wood can act as a sponge over time. It'll pull all the moisture from what's underneath it, you know. But that was a bad one.
You made a comment too about when I was there. You were saying like, "Hey, I didn't go look at it," but you're like, "Hey, something's going on with the floor in there. I'm noticing a lot of stains and black marking on the floor."
Yeah, and
I don't
and
remember
those
what that was.
those areas weren't in the traffic areas of the house. So
Right.
that's when I was like, why is there wear and tear in the corner? You know,
Right.
nobody's doing donuts in the corner.
Right.
You know, so yeah, there was a lot of staining all over that floor, and it was an old wood floor, so
Right.
you'll see it if it's constantly soaking up moisture.
Yeah.
But really, like, that's a tough one because I don't believe it was from plumbing.
Right.
I don't believe it was exactly from drainage. I
Right.
think it was also the location.
Right.
You know, because I've been into some where, you know, it's just groundwater.
Yeah.
And if you don't have ventilation under there, you know, you're gonna get that.
You're gonna get it.
You're gonna get it.
Remember that one we did? I don't think where it was when we were having those heavy rains. The house was sitting really low. I think it was in Spring Valley as well, but water was coming off of the hill and it was going underneath the house, but it wasn't going on the surface. It was like a high water table and it was pushing up all the water through the crawl space, which was like 2 or 3 feet. And it came up and flooded the inside of the house.
Yep, that was in La Mesa.
That was in La Mesa, yeah.
La Mesa Springs, yeah. That was crazy.
I had
'cause,
never seen anything like that.
You actually saw pressure coming out of gopher holes.
Yeah.
And that was all from groundwater.
All from groundwater.
Yep, because the guy's house was at the base of one of the steep hills that are in La Mesa.
Right.
And we could not find a broken pipe, we couldn't find
Right.
anything. And I just took a peek over his neighbor's fence, and you see pressure coming out of gopher holes, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, I think this is groundwater. This is
Groundwater.
insane. But yeah, that whole, because he had a split level house, right?
Yeah.
And it flooded out the whole entryway.
Yeah.
As it filled up. Oh man, that was crazy.
That was crazy. They sent me a video and then there's water like coming up from the floor. And I'm like,
Yep.
I've never seen water just seep up
Yep.
out of the ground like
That
that.
was insane. I forgot
And then I
about
was like,
that one.
okay, all right, well, is this house on a slab? And they're like, no, it's a raised foundation. Oh, so you're telling me that the water filled up 2 feet worth of water and then it is now coming into the house? So it's like 3 feet worth of standing water.
Yeah.
It's not funny, but God,
It's
that was ridiculous.
It's something to consider. You
Yeah.
know, like, I mean, think about it. You're moving to like where we were at, La Mesa Springs.
Yeah,
There's a spring underneath there.
there's a spring.
So you
underneath it,
kind of
right?
have to factor in that it may not always be from a, some sort of drainage issue. You may have a
Yeah.
really high water table.
Yeah, and maybe that house, because like you said, it was split level, so the main house
Yeah.
was here. So once they did the add-on, they added the add-on,
Yeah,
which
because
is
I
a
think
little
the
bit lower.
garage and the entryway was an add-on,
Oh, okay.
if I remember correctly, or vice versa. I don't know, but one section was an add-on.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was gnarly.
yeah, that may be one of those situations where you want to check permits to make sure it was
Yeah.
added on with the permit and
Yeah.
stuff like that, or
I mean, I think if I remember correctly, the house originally was from the 60s.
from the 60s. Okay.
Pretty sure permits weren't a thing.
Yeah. It seemed like the seller would have. That couldn't have been the first time that happened. You know,
No.
right?
And that's what
Not
I told
that much
the
water.
homeowner too. I was like, there's no way that this just happened with you here.
Yeah.
The seller had to have known
They
something.
had to, especially if the neighbor has water coming out of the gopher hose.
Yeah.
It's like this has definitely had to happen before.
Yeah, because if you stood out in the driveway and looked at all the drains coming out of people's houses, it was rushing out, and I'm like, it's not even raining right now.
Right.
So that's all groundwater.
Right.
That's all French drainage just pushing out
Right.
to the street.
And I think it had
was
rained pretty
wild.
hard like the week before too.
Yeah,
And
that was when all the flooding started.
when the flooding had happened, yeah. And this was like a few days after that.
Yeah,
And there was
yeah.
no rain at all. And I'm like, what? This
Yep.
is weird.
And even the groundwater's causing like a river down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was gnarly.
Yeah. That was a good one. What else is some stuff that we've seen?
I mean, there's so much, looking at, how people build stuff, Mother Nature, like
Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts.
there really is.
There's a lot of moving parts to the house, even on the brand new houses, right? Where you think that,
brand new
right? You think that everything should be fine, but I think I told a story before. Like that's how I came up with that whole saying. Another good reason to have a home inspection.
Yeah,
is-
that sticks in the back of my head every time I find something.
Yeah, and it's because I went into a brand new build, and I assumed this is when I first started, and I assumed that it's a brand new house. There's not going to be very many problems, and I started to find so many problems.
Yeah.
And I had told the neighbor, he was like, "Hey, do you think there's a good reason I should even have my house inspected?" And I'm like, "Nah, I can't think of a good reason you should have a home inspection." And then I walked in that house, and I found all type of shit,
Yeah.
like leaks in the wall. There was truss in the attic that were cut and had never been secured back properly.
Yeah, who signs these things off? You know what
Right,
I mean? Like,
exactly.
there's just no way.
And the other thing too is I've been at a couple times where the inspector has come to the property, and he was in and out so fast.
He hears new home. Oh, I don't have to look at anything. And then he just covers his ass. That's it.
Yeah. He came, he was like, "Hey, do you mind if I use your ladder?" And he walks through the property like he's the man, right? Because everybody's on his dick and shit like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? How's it going, Bob? You doing good? Yeah. Hey, did you fix that thing I told you about last week? Oh yeah, I got it all fixed. All right.
Yeah.
And then he's
It's like
like,
a Full House moment.
yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. Everyone's like trying to be his friend. And then he's like, "Hey, do you mind if I use your ladder?" And he has on a white shirt. That should have been the first giveaway. He's not getting dirty if he got on a white shirt. He comes.
You don't come to work in a white shirt.
Nah, he comes and he sticks his head up in the attic. He looks around, never turned the light on, never even asked to use my flashlight. I'm like, "What the hell are you looking at in there?" Sticks his head, looks around, all right, walks out. I'm like, "What the fuck was that?" And then I crawled in there and the normal stuff. It was missing a sediment trap on the furnace and a whole bunch of other little small stuff, some open junction boxes and stuff that hadn't been done. But I'm like, there's no way he saw that stuff, you know?
No.
He just stuck his head in there, looked around. But that's how things get passed,
Yeah.
I think.
As long as we saw him look,
Right.
he looked.
He looked, right. Uh-huh.
Doesn't mean he's legitimately looking.
Exactly. And sometimes, like if they're doing like not new builds, but if they're doing like renovation work, and if you show up and the contractor's doing really good work to begin with, then they're like, all right, this dude is legit. He's doing good work. Then they'll probably be in and out. But if they get there and this contractor is doing some shitty work, now they're like, okay, this dude don't know anything. Now I'm finna hit him up on everything. Like, okay, you're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. Now I want you to really jump through some hoops just to show that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So that's how they get around a lot of stuff, I think, is if they show up at a property and if everything looks good, if they're missing one or two things, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. They assume. But if they show up and the house is really shitty, now they're going to like really be on that person to make sure that they...
Well, it's hard to come across true craftsmanship anymore.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do that because I feel like when the demand for housing started, I don't know, what, 2010?
Yeah.
Maybe 2011, when all these homes were starting to pop up.
Right.
It's like anybody can be a contractor. They'll just hire the lowest subcontractor.
Right.
And then there's no craftsmanship.
Right.
You know, I feel like you go into a house that was built before early 2000s, you're going to know that you're going to find stuff that's not up to code, but that house was probably built to last through a hurricane. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's built strong, mostly done right.
Yeah.
You know, no house is perfect. But these ones, oh my gosh, these brand new builds.
Yeah.
They are the thickest reports. And I tell everyone, like, you should be happy with this 90s build that you just found.
Right.
You don't want a 2020
Right.
because then you're going to be battling the contractor for years.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, a friend of mine, she just had a new build. I inspected her house. Oh man, I just thought about this. I inspected her house. They put the shower in backwards, bro. I didn't even
You could do that?
Yeah, I didn't even recognize it was backwards until I went back out for the re-inspection.
So what, drain on this side?
Yeah. There's a try to explain it this way it makes sense. So there's the master bathroom cabinets and sinks, right? And then you have the shower sitting this way. Sinks here, shower here. There's only a little space to kind of enter into the shower here.
Okay.
As you enter in the shower, the little seat that you sit on should be on the opposite side, and the shower head is here. So when the water's coming, you can actually sit down and the shower's in front of you. This one, you're standing there, shower is here, and there's a big table, stool right here in front of you. So getting in and out of the shower is only a 17-inch clearance, which is really small. I think the clearance by code is like, the clearance by code I think is at least 24 inches. Because you got to think, like, what does obese people do? You can't get into a 7.
Right.
That's a fall hazard. Or what if my mom comes to your house or comes to my house and she's having trouble getting in? Now she has to maneuver over the seat to get into the shower. But I didn't recognize it. So she was like, does this look right?
That's funny.
And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, no, this is not right. So they installed it backwards. And then she had spoken to the rest of the people in her complex, and all of the people in the complex have it like that. They're all backwards in the entire complex. And
so that was just a design fail.
Yeah. But they did it backwards. They all thought, because it's not code. It's only a 17-inch clearance. So you can't install it like that. Even if it's like a poor design, it's definitely not up to code.
See, there it goes again. Who signs off on this shit?
Right? And it's one of those minute things that you can't really see until you know.
When it's there.
When it's
right
there.
in front of you. Yeah.
The other thing with that property too, we don't inspect solar, but they had never turned on the solar. So she had got her bill, and she's like, man, it seems like my bill is just as much as my other house.
Yeah.
And then she called the company, come to find out, they had those micro inverters, you know, so they have the little inverters on the roof that change the DC current to AC current. Normally it's a box on the side of the roof, on the side of the house. This one had the small ones that were on the roof, but I guess they never flipped it on, or they was missing just like a power cord. So that whole complex, they weren't getting any
That
solar
sucks. That
for
sucks.
shoot. It's almost been a year.
That sucks.
Yeah, almost been a year.
Damn.
But yeah, the shower thing really threw me off.
That's, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it again. Who the hell signs this shit off?
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
like when I was building schools and stuff.
Yeah.
I did learn that half the people who are engineering these projects have never even lifted a hammer.
Yeah.
They're just going off of computer. Like,
Yeah.
oh, it looks great on my screen.
Right.
Okay, well now you got a whole team of guys that are trying to put this thing together, and it just ain't coming out right.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so I have learned that you know it's engineers doesn't mean they're contractors. Doesn't mean they've gotten dirty.
Right. Exactly.
You know? Like I remember doing this one just retaining wall in Escondido.
Mm-hmm.
This engineer made the retaining wall was 4 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
This engineer made the footing 8 feet wide.
8 feet
Yes,
wide.
8 feet wide. We did it. We got
Right,
paid.
like,
Hey,
okay.
man, you're paying. We're gonna do it. But
Right.
like, it just goes to show, like, because she thought it needed that because of specs on the computer.
Right.
There you go.
8 foot wide.
That's huge.
That's huge.
It's huge. You only need maybe a 2 foot.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, you know it's gonna cost you.
But I think that's what's going on with a lot of these new construction, like the development that's going up
Yeah.
all over the place. It's all built off a computer.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's actually putting their brains into it. They're
Yeah.
letting Chat GPT.
Right, exactly. That's true. You know what's funny is that now that you mentioned that property that I'm talking about, it wasn't a really big development, like a, you know, like a big urban development. It was like a small, I don't know, maybe 12, 20 units, like in the middle of, you know, one particular area, you know?
Yeah.
So the builders probably, like you said, like they're just,
How can we cram everything and make it all work?
yeah,
Computers.
exactly. You know, and no one actually went out and tried to get in the tub.
Yep. Yeah. But you know what? It's going to catch up to them in the end because they're probably going to end up having, you know, injuries. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But that's, if you think about it, that's kind of how these codes always change. Like with electrical in a closet.
You're right.
They had to have had accidents before they realized, okay, we can't put those in the closet.
Oh, the
anymore.
electrical panels inside
You
the
know what I
closet,
mean?
right?
Yeah, like, so now they don't allow it.
Right.
But back in the 80s,
Right.
they allowed it.
They're doing it all the
So
time.
that's always like we're the guinea pigs or
Right.
something.
Oh,
and
oops, someone
trial and
died.
error. Like,
Probably shouldn't do that
they're
again.
gonna have enough slip and falls through the tiny little showers. That
Right.
they're like, okay, we got to fix that.
They probably should do that again. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, we're just running the trial and error. We're the dummies.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
But that's why you get a home inspection. You
Amen.
know what I mean? We do our best on staying on top of codes that change all the time.
Right.
California changes by the minute, I feel like.
Yeah,
But,
that's true.
but even if it was built yesterday, you should have a home inspection.
Yep, that's the main point, huh?
Yes, that is
Another good reason to have a home
another
inspection.
good reason.
Cut.